Okay, the time has come to do a video on the Bat City Cinema CINE-TRASH movie marathon. Oh my God, this was a great spook show. It took place in Austin, Texas, Saturday, June 25th, 2016. It was all put together by this guy, Ivan Peycheff. I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Ivan, who was worked with programming, I guess, the Grand Illusion Cinema in Seattle, which I feel like I've heard of. I heard of there was some really incredible stuff. And he's come to Austin and put together this Bat City Cinema, and their first project, this inaugural voyage into the world of weird cinema, is this CINE-TRASH movie marathon. It was an all-night movie marathon. 6 movies started at 6:30 p.m. went into the wee hours of Sunday. I actually left a little bit early, but I want to kind of go over all the movies that showed here, and because there was some really beautiful movies, and it was very much like in the tradition of a classic spook show, in that there was like one point where there was a guy in a gorilla suit. I think it was Ivan, gorilla suit, which grabbed somebody out of the audience. There was a head that appeared on the screen and started talking, an electric spooky head, so, and there was an insurance policy when you got into the blaze. It was a really fun show. And I'd only seen one of the movies here. So it was kind of a nice, experience of these old movies, because it's mainly 50s, 60s type stuff, all in 16 and 35 millimeters, all these really scratchy old prints. The main downfall of this is that where this event was held, the Marchesa Theater, it can only project, I guess, their 16 millimeter projection setup, which I think is actually rather recent there, but it can only project it on like a big square in the middle of the screen. There were 2 35 millimeter films which they projected, but and a bunch of 35 millimeter trailers, because they showed a ton of trailers. But the 16 was a little bit difficult to watch, and that's actually kind of why I dipped out of The Brain That Wouldn't Die. But in any case, first film they showed, 16 millimeter, the Slime People. Oh my God, I've never seen this before. The Slime People are indeed the Slime People costumes are really cool. I mean, it's basically kind of like a siege film. It's a bunch of people in Los Angeles. The Slime People have erected this wall of fog. They have a fog making machine that they've built these fog walls, and so they're all fighting for their lives, against the Slime People. Simple movie, simple good. Start off kind of easy, kind of a slow pace, but with some nice, some goofy kind of costumes and nice stuff. Again, 16 millimeters. So as we were watching this little black and white 16 millimeter little square in the middle of the screen, Second movie, Swamp of the Ravens. Oh my God, Swamp of the Ravens, out on Something Weird DVD, and then I think there is a more recent DVD from VCI that doesn't have all the features and all the stuff in the Something Weird DVD, but I think it has a better quality. Actually, apparently we were watching the 35 millimeter print, which Something Weird actually made the DVD from. The actual print from Something Weird, which according to some online sources is missing some footage versus the VCI DVD. But it was a pretty rough print. Not that bad to look at. The last couple reels had really beautiful color. Really beautiful color. Swamp of the Ravens, kind of a mad scientist film from this Spanish director, I believe, Manuel Cano. I think it was shot in Ecuador. So it's like this Ecuadorian Spanish movie, very much about there's a lot of swamp, and there's like buzzards. It's like, I think Swamp of the Buzzards would be a bad, I don't think there's not really that many ravens in the film. I think they're really just buzzards. But it's just mad scientist who's killing prostitutes, young women, and draining them of blood and trying to extend life, and cutting people's hearts out, and people are jumping up and screaming, and blind looking weird henchmen and people and living in the swamps, living dead people in the swamps that grab people, and all kinds of stuff that really doesn't really add up to mean anything. It's kind of a really confused mad scientist film. In the mad scientist genre, which is already kind of confused, but a good little weird entertainment. It's one of those Spanish movies that you just kind of like nothing really kind of happens. It's one of those things. There are like the Armando de Osorio films, like the Templar, the Blind Dead films and shit, like where basically or Paul Naschy films, basically movies where shit happens, and then there's always these like Spanish films, Spanish horror films, Spanish action films, where like it never seems like anything happens, and they just drag out for like 90 minutes, and like somebody like falls over dead, like halfway through the movie. That's what it feels like to me. It's Spanish films. There's like two genres of like the Spanish exploitation genre of the 70s and 80s. It seems to me like split in two between like movies where stuff happens and movies where inexplicably just stuff kind of doesn't even happen. Like imagine like a mad scientist film where it doesn't really feel like a lot of stuff happens. It just kind of just drags. That's what this movie felt like. Sorry, maybe I'm a drag, but the movie kind of really dragged. It had one actor that I didn't really recognize anybody except this guy, this really lecherous inspector played by this guy, Fernando Sancho, which speaking of Armando de Osorio, he was in that Armando de Osorio, The Possessed. He was also in Return of the Blind Dead. He was that mayor, that debauched mayor, or somebody in Return of the Blind Dead. That was the only guy I really recognized. But it was great. 35mm, really beautiful film print, so that was a great one to watch. The third film was The Living Head, 16mm, black and white, Spanish horror film, one of those K. Gordon Murray imports with German Robles and a zombified head that was stolen from the tomb that comes back to life and seeks, basically kind of the Mummy plot, except in place of a full mummy, it's like just a head. And the mummy the mummy head has like henchmen that kill the people. It's the whole Universal Studios mummy, reincarnated girl, and the people, the henchman seeks revenge against the people that uncovered the mummy. So it's that whole Howard Carter thing, and so I mean it's kind of like basically like a remake of the Universal Studios The Mummy, but with a head. And, it's K. Gordon Murray, it's German Robles, it's very competently made, but kind of a bit of a snoozer, It's something that, you'd watch on Commander USA's Groovy Movies, and, you just you'd get through it, But not a bad movie. The fourth film was kind of a mystery to me. Teenage Psycho Killer. The on-screen title, I believe this was a Something Weird print. The on-screen title was Teenage Passion, but it was really the 1975 Canadian film Recommendation for Mercy. It was this is a movie I've never heard of. Really, it's a curio. Really doesn't belong in this cine-trash thing because it's not really a trashy film. It's basically a based on a real life story of this guy, this young kid who was accused of raping and murdering one of his classmates, this young girl. And this young guy was basically just railroaded by the Canadian legal system and basically falsely imprisoned. And he eventually paroled out, and actually back in 2008 he was actually awarded $6.5 million. So, I mean, really kind of, it's not really that sleazy, it was rather an odd duck. Very, very much in the genre of 70s, like, coming-of-age films, After that was The Brain That Wouldn't Die, 16mm, and I kind of I'd seen The Brain That Wouldn't Die before, so I kind of dropped out because it was getting a little bit tiring watching the 16mm in a black and white square all night. And by that point, it was like almost 3 o'clock, and so I don't know. Now there was some controversy whether they were actually going to show the sixth film Death on the Highway, which had apparently a lot of real life. It was like a, one of those 50s, 60s, instructional films that had a lot of real life carnage, apparently. And I've never seen Death on the Highway again, not that I can remember. So there was some question of whether they were going to play it. I don't know if they did. But in any case, that was a show. A really great show. Again, full of gimmickry, full of the gimmicks, the gorillas, the contests, the insurance policy, all that stuff that makes a great, a late night marathon. It was there. It had it in ample quantities and a great atmosphere, and with a weird mix of movies. Everything from Spanish horror to K. Gordon Murray, to the Slime People, to Canadian very serious films. So it was a nice mix, and very, very, very enjoyable. I'm really excited to see what Bat City Cinema is gonna come up with next, because it's really, really, really good stuff.